Okay, let's move over to a book about one Rolling Stone now, Mick Jagger by Philip Norman. Very much publicised book that's been published by HarperCollins in hardback at £20, and David Charter's.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things on these rather flimsy ground that he can't remember very much of the old cliche about the 1960s. I think in his case that is not true. He's got a very astute mind. He will recall everything, I think.
Yeah. And Keith Richards remembered everything for his book.
Well, yes, he certainly did. And Bill Wyman, of course, kept all the records. So, there would have been... they said that it was very dull, his own autobiography, which was ghostwritten anyway, because it concentrated very much on his school days and the early days of the Stones. I think that might have been very interesting, actually, to see. He's highly articulate, but we've got this book instead, anyway, about him from Philip Norman. I was watching last night Mick Jagger and Ronnie Wood and Keith performing with Muddy Waters on television, and it was extraordinary to see the energy, the pouting, the preening, the twirling, the total domination he wanted, and yet the dignity came out from Muddy Waters, who just kept on playing, while this guy was jumping all around him, Yeah. And interestingly, Keith and Ronnie both fitted in. They blended in very well into the backing band, I thought.
Yeah. Well, Muddy Waters was sort of twice their age anyway, wasn't he? Because it's Muddy Waters' centennial in April 2013.
Yeah.
In fact, I must do a show on rock stars who get to be 100, or at least it's 100th anniversary of their birth.
You're a very short show.
I don't know. They're coming up. Frankie Lane in March. That's his. Oh, he's dead. Yes. Yeah. No, I meant anniversary.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant people who are still alive. Sorry. No. I misunderstood you there.
Yeah, we haven't had a rock star who's made it to 100 yet.
I think Mick might make it because not to 200, because he does seem to have a life, a charmed existence.
He was on the clips of him at the O2 Arena. He was astonishingly adept, wasn't he? Most people at 72 are worried about falling over, but he certainly isn't.
He's running 7 miles a day, isn't he? He's very fit and lithe, and all these things come out in Philip Norman's book. But just as Patrick Humphreys with Lonnie Donegan, the one thing that is missing is an understanding of it, because I don't think Philip Norman can decide whether he's an historian or whether he's a journalist, because he gives us a lot of information, so he knows a lot about Mick Jagger, but I wonder if he understands him, and he certainly isn't able to convey an understanding to the reader, I don't think. And although the research is magnificent and the detail is there, so much detail, missing the point sometimes, perhaps with too much detail.
Yeah, and did you feel that Jagger himself would like this book or not?
Difficult to say, because I think it's not a flattering portrait of him, but there's no doubt at all, I don't think, that the Rolling Stones wouldn't have existed for so long without Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger was the force and the energy and the drive. And although there's now a great sort of Lennon-McCartney row between who was the greatest Stone, and Keith is perhaps the more likeable guy with the mascara eyes and the menacing look and the slouching style. However, Mick was the brains, I think, behind it, which kept
the businessman.
And the businessman, which kept the show on the road for so long, against all the odds. How they have stayed together is almost beyond belief.
Well, but it's unlike the Beatles. The Beatles decide in 1969, that's it, we're finishing.
Yeah.
But the Stones at different times have said, we're going to take a couple of years off, haven't they? So they haven't actually packed up, but they've been a couple of years without seeing each other.
Well, they've got a very strong group ethos, and Bill and Charlie, obviously, to some extent, resented being thought of as the other ranks, with Keith and Mick being the officers there, and Charlie actually eventually punches. But when Mick, for about the 15th time, refers to him as my drummer, Charlie punches him twice in the face. He says, the second one is so you'll remember, and you are my singer, which is sweet revenge, But there's this astonishing energy that Mick Jagger has. That is the thing.
Well, Mick can say the wrong things, can't he? At the O2 Arena, when he was saying, those of you in the cheap seats, there aren't any. That seems a very arrogant thing to be saying, even though it was true.
He struts about, doesn't he, with a great arrogance, and when I think of my upbringing as a pale need in suburban Birkenhead and the life that Mick Jagger was living and the number of girls that he had and the range of drugs he went through, I feel such an innocent. Yes. Yes. And Keith, of course, surpassed him in some of those fields, but not in the women, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Dean wants to say something. Come to the microphone, Dean, if you come to the mic. Dean Johnson, we're going to have him in the second half of the programme.
I had a drink with Bill Wyman, right? I supported him on tour. And then...
this is Bill Wyman with the Kings.
Yeah, and the last night in Llandudno, he says, I'll see you for a drink later. And then when we were in the bar, people come up to me and going, hey, are you Rolling Stone? And he goes, yeah, that's right. And he goes, which one are you? And he goes, Charlie, and I said, do you get this all the time? And he goes, I don't know, I haven't been for a drink for 25 years, But anyway, he said, come on, Dean. He goes, who's your favourite Stone? And I said, well, I don't like to say. He goes, come on. I said, Keith. And he goes, have you ever met him?
And what about the death of Brian Jones? How's that handled in the book?
Very good. I think Philip Norman's at his best, actually, in the decline of Brian Jones and the loss to popular music with his death. And it's very difficult to know whether Mick and Keith were sympathetic towards Brian, whether they did enough to help him or not. And there are moments when you see Mick Jagger being kind, being generous, wanting to help, and you just don't know whether they could have done more to save Brian. I mean, Brian was a very self-willed person, had a huge amount of emotional problems. The miracle is that they kept going for so long, against this background. No other group has kept going as long as the Stones, have they? The personnel, three central players there have stayed together,
Yeah, and you commented on the very good research on the book.
Yeah.
One thing that disappointed me when I looked through it is that he doesn't say where he gets it from. Unlike most books of that size, there aren't notes at the end saying this is from so-and-so.
No, I think you... Actually, my criticism of it would be perhaps that he's sought too many reference points, and as you say, not quoting them. But I do think that they're largely true what he says about it. But I think he has lost the sense of historical analysis because he is rather there's too much journalism and there's too much live celebrity magazine stuff towards the end about deals. There's one remark made about the Sympathy for the Devil being Mick's only masterpiece. Well, I think that's a very contentious point to make. Mm-hmm. And then he likens it to Tangled Up in Blue and A Day in the Life by John Lennon, saying as though they were the two masterpieces of those people. That's just a matter of opinion. It certainly can't be stated as a fact. And Mick has more than one masterpiece, I would say. It's ridiculous to say he only had one masterpiece.
OK, well, we'll hear one of those masterpieces now. I think you'll agree, Jumping Jack Flash.
Yeah.
And what about a mark for the book?
Because 7.5.
OK, thanks very much.